Alright folks, welcome back to another Elden Ring video, and today I'm going to go through probably my favourite build that I've made so far. It's a new character that I made based on the faith stat effectively, because I love the incantations in this game, especially the dragon communion ones, which historically people have told me aren't very good, but I think I've come up with a build that makes it really viable and super strong PVE, but also super strong in PvP too. So the build is based, like I say, on having lots and lots of faith, but you need some arcane as well just to run the dragon communion spells. But the main difference is we're running these dual coded swords, and look at the damage you can do here. It's absolutely insane. This is one of the end game Erdtree avatars, and yeah, it deals crazy amounts of damage. So this is the build here. Now this is also probably my favorite build just because all the gear on it looks so damn cool. I mean, just check out the coded swords. The actual writing on the sword blades looks like Lord of the Rings. It's absolutely crazy. You know, like the writing that's on the one ring from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, definitely the coolest weapons in the game that I've found so far. And they've got great stat requirements, which we'll go over in a second. And obviously you're casting dragon incantation spells as well, so we're running things like Dragon Maw, Greyroll's Roar, but we'll go through all that in a second. Let's have a look at our stats first, and then we'll go through the gear. So it's a level 125 build. The reason I've stopped at 125 is because this seems to be pretty much the meta for PvP just now, and I actually built this guy up as a PvP character. It just turns out it's insane for PvE as well. So 125 seems to be about the meta. We've gone here with 50 Vigor, 30 Mind, 16 Endurance, 11 Strength and Dexterity. This is a Prophet character, so that's just the base starting for all three of these things actually: Strength, Dexterity and Intelligence, 70 Faith and 18 Arcane. Now the reason we've been able to get really good stats out of this is because of the coded swords. Now the coded swords only requirement from attributes is 20 in Faith. This is one of the best things about them. Most sort of unique, decent weapons later on all have like Strength, Dexterity, Faith, or three things to tick off. This only has Faith, which really means you can dump loads of points into the rest of your build. So I've been able to get right up to 70 Faith and still have really good Mind, really good Vigor, and a decent amount of Arcane at level 125. Now the Arcane I've not actually boosted at all. The Arcane's all coming from this thing here, which is the Silver Tear Mask. Now, the Silver Tear Mask actually gives +8 to your Arcane stat, which is the highest of any sort of equipment in the game at boosting your stat, but it does give you a 5% reduction in physical damage. But again, the beautiful thing about this is the coded swords only do holy damage. It's pure holy damage. As you can see here on the attack power bit, there is 0 physical attack coming from it. So the Silver Tear Mask won't affect these in the slightest, and you'll still do a crazy amount of holy damage. Yeah, it's actually pretty nuts what these things do. So with having the +8 to the Arcane, I think the base, yeah, it's a base stat of 10 with Arcane on the Prophet build, so it gets it up to 18. You only actually need 17 Arcane to make this build work, because the highest stat requirement of Arcane with any of the Dragon Communion spells that we use is 17, but +8 was fine. It just gives it a little bit extra. We didn't dump any points into it anyway. So that's the Silver Tear Mask. Probably one of the better masks in the game. It's overlooked just because of the sheer amount of value you get from getting +8 to Arcane. Now the rest is I've used the Veteran's Armor. This just worked out well because not only is it one of the coolest looking armor sets in the game, it also put us bang on the equip load of just under the heavy equip load, because I wanted a lot of poise with this build. So if we go into the talismans here, I've actually used the 2 weight talismans. So I've got the Great Jar's Arsenal and the Erdtree's Favor +2. Both of these increase equip load, so we're able to basically wield 4 weapons, which we do really need to wield 4, plus really good heavy armor and still have 70 poise. And I'll explain why in a minute we want so much poise. I did choose Radagon Icon because this dramatically increases the cast time of your Dragon Communion spells. I didn't actually use the Radagon Icon when I was using my Mage build because I was just shooting off really quick sorting spells, things like Glintstone Shard and all that kind of stuff, and it does shorten the cast time, but it's not too noticeable. You really do notice it when you build it with Dragon Communion spells because they've got such a long load up time. And I've seen other videos where people have confirmed this. It really makes a difference, but you feel a difference when you're playing it. So this really improves the Dragon Communion spells because they are super slow to cast, so this makes a difference. And then probably the best talisman for incantations in the game, which is the Phlox Canvas Talisman. It's not easy to get this. Again, if you look up on YouTube, there's lots of guides on how to get it, but it is very, very endgame. The rest of these, well, in fact, Erdtree's Favor +2 is really endgame as well, and so is the Flux Canvas. So yeah, I guess this is definitely an endgame build, but I'm shooting for endgame PvP with this build anyway. So in terms of the coded swords, if you power stance them, you get a bunch of extra attacks. Like the jumping attack is incredible. If you're running and you do this jump and it just swipes them like that, you're basically a Jedi, makes some cool noises. It'll one-shot most just basic enemies in the game. If you hit anyone in PvP like this, you will absolutely destroy them as well, especially once you do your buffs. So if we go through our incantations here, so you want to switch to both of your things. Now, something I should note as well, we are using the Dragon Communion spells here quite a lot, but we're not actually using the Dragon Communion seal to cast them. Now, the reason for this being is because the Dragon Communion seal only scales off B with Faith, but S with Arcane, and we are dumped into Faith, not Arcane with this build. Now, most people that do Dragon Communion spells, they dump loads into Arcane. We've gone the opposite. And I know what a lot of people are going to say, I'm not going to get the scaling the same from the Dragon Communion spells as I will with Arcane, and that's actually completely false. It's a common misconception because the actual incantations only scale off whatever seal you are using. So as you can see, the Erdtree seal is the only thing that scales S tier off Faith. So if you have the Erdtree seal in the right hand and you've got the Dragon Communion in the left hand, you get the passive bonus from the Dragon Communion incantations, but then you will also get the S tier Faith scaling from actually casting the spell. So you get the best of both worlds, and you end up with what I believe is the most powerful way of casting the Dragon Communion spells. So our pre-buffs before we actually start the fight here, we've got our Golden Vow, which increases our defense and attack. I think it's by 15%, and it's a really good timer, so this is a must if you're using any sort of Faith in any build. And then from the Golden Vow, we also hit Flame Grant Me Strength. This just gives a damage to physical and fire attacks. And then to top off that as well, in the Wondrous Physics mix, we are using the Faith Not Crystal tier. That boosts us up from 70 to 80 Faith, which hits that hard cap we're looking for. And also the Holy Shrouding Crack tier, which temporarily boosts holy attacks. Now, I know a lot of people in many PvP sort of tournaments are a bit funny about using these ones, so when I go into the sort of PvP competitive side, I'll switch out the holy attacks one, and I'll probably use something, I don't know, I'll use something different. Maybe the one that gives you HP back when you hit a low amount of health. But yeah, when you've got these two active, you deal some absolutely crazy damage. It's absolutely insane. Now, one of the first spells we're using here is our Grey Rose Roar. One of my favourite dragon spells in the game, actually. It's a beast, so if you hit it here, look how cool this looks. Now, what it does, it actually gives off an AoE, which can catch a lot of people out. So it gives off a small radius AoE blast, which deals a lot of damage, actually. I've one-shotted people in PvP with this. But if it lands, it also decreases the enemy's defense and increases your defense. So it sets it up beautifully for a follow-up attack. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go from Grey Rose Roar straight into Dragon Maw, which is next to it. And Dragon Maw actually got buffed in the 1.04 patch. Now this thing is a melee damage spell. It's really strong. And like I said, as of the last update, it's had an FP decrease, stamina cost decrease, and loads of poise now in the animation, which makes it really, really strong, because before you could actually get cancelled out of the animation quite easy. That was why I was saying earlier to have plenty of poise in your build, because if you do have this amount of poise, which is 70 in this build, plus the hyper armor, or whatever you want to call it, poise, from actually casting Dragon Maw, you're basically going to be able to land this every time, and it smacks super hard, especially after landing Grey Rose Roar. Now, the next big one, everyone will know this one, is Excite's Decay. It is the breath spell that causes Scarlet Rot. Now, that is the single cast there. You can also hold it down and charge it, and you can spread it around the battlefield like this. So look at this. You're guaranteed to hit something in PvP when you do that. That's usually how I open my fights up with that spell. Because you can spread it across the battlefield, you're pretty much always going to hit someone. And it does cast much quicker with that Radagon's icon, so it's well worth using that. The only other spell I'm really using in here now is I use Bestial Sling, just because any incantation build, especially if you're running in PvP, needs this spell, because it's so quick. You can just burst them and just keep people off you. You know, if someone's running at you, just keep those pesky people off you. But the last actual dragon spell I'm using is Theodoric's Magma. Now this one gets a lot of bad rep. I notice a lot of people don't use this spell. I actually think it's probably one of the best dragon spells for PvP. It's not that much used for PvE, but this is definitely my go-to for PvP. Because as you can see, it's much quicker cast than the other ones. And it does leave this lava field, which, to be honest, doesn't deal a lot of damage. but it also creates a little bit of space where people are wary to go in it if they don't know, so you can almost create a little wall between you and the enemy with PvP. But the really good thing about it is it actually chain casts with your bestial sling. So let me try and show you. It does chain cast with other incantations as well, I think like O Flame and stuff, but bestial sling's the most useful one. So you can cast the bestial sling like that, but if you go like that and then quickly change and then quickly changed it, it does it relatively quickly. But the secret is, if you actually just cast 2 bestial slings in a row and then straight into the magma, it cancels out all the animation of the dragon head. Now let me try and do it. So it's, as you can see there, cancels the animation and just throws it straight away. So you've carried out 2 bestial slings and a massive attack there for a bunch of damage. If you can trigger this on people in PvP, you will just basically one-shot them. It's nuts. It is quite difficult to pull off, I'm not going to lie, but if you practice the sort of combination button you're pressing, you will pull it off, and it's a really, really cool thing to do to people. Really catches them off guard. So like I said, it's 1, 2, and then throw it. Really, really strong. Great way of chain casting it. So that is the build, guys. I'm just going to let this video run with a bunch of footage of me actually playing some gameplay with it, killing some bosses, killing some really big name bosses in it, and then a little bit of PvP at the end. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button because it really helps the channel out. We're trying to grow. And yeah, that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take it easy.
die.